Hi, this is Mr. Cordes, and today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to look at Of Mice and Men, Chapter 5, specifically looking at the character of Curly's wife and the introduction paragraphs of that chapter. Curly's wife is a really great character. She's also very much so an underrated character. However, she's used as a pivotal point in our story for our protagonists, George and Lenny. Looking at Chapter 5, we've read through Chapter 5. We've answered the questions for Chapter 5. We know what happens in Chapter 5. So if you haven't read it, please take a moment to go back and read. Spoiler alerts for what happens. But looking at Chapter 5, we really get an in-depth understanding of why Curly's wife is lonely. We understand why she craves attention. We understand why she begins a conversation with Lenny and why she's so misunderstood. So looking at Chapter 5, we're going to begin with the first opening lines. There are 4 questions, and I'm going to go through the questions real quickly just so they can be in our mind as we go back and reread. Number 1, why does John Steinbeck set up the scene for Curly's wife and Lenny's conversation with such description? Why is he setting it up the scene this way? What words or phrases help shape the conversation that is about to occur? Number 3, what imagery senses, taste, touch, smell, sight, hear, can you pick up from the passage? And number 4, how does such imagery contribute to the characters and their personality? Here, we're primarily going to look at Curly's wife. Okay, I'm going to go through and help you answer some of these. So please make sure on your own Google Doc you have these answers, because this is what you'll be turning in. It says here, one end of the great barn was piled high with new hay, and the pile hung a 4-talon Jackson fork suspended from its pulley. The hay came down like a mountain slope to the other end of the barn, and there was a level place as yet unfulfilled with the new crop. At the sides of the feeding rack were visible, and between the slats, the heads of the horses could be seen. So at this moment in time, it's very quiet. John Steinbeck sets up the description. It almost sounds like Chapter 1 that we analyzed, where it starts at the top, goes down to a resting place, and then moves up. Let me take a moment. Let's get up over here to the board, and we will. Let me make this a little bit bigger so you guys can kind of see the board. Looking here on one side, it says on one side the pile of hay was up. So you essentially got, the pile of hay comes down. It says that there's a 4-talon pitchfork that's hanging by a pulley system. So you got like a rope system. You got a talon fork, and then it's got the new hay that's here, and it kind of goes down to this resting place right down in the middle. And I guess my camera is reversed, but that's fine. You guys get the idea. And then on the other side, you have horses sticking their heads out, right? There's the harnesses. They've got the chains that are connected there. That's a horse. That's a picture of a horse. Wow, is that a picture of a horse? So just remember that. And you get this very quiet place. So looking here, let me make this a little bit smaller. Okay, cool. It says the hay came down like a mountain slope to the other end of the barn, and there was a level place at which the unfilled, I like that word, unfilled. This is used as unfilled, meaning there should be something there, right? This, if you're going to annotate, grab your annotation notes, unfilled, which means something should be in this place, right? And when we deal with Curly's wife, we're dealing with someone who is very lonely, someone who needs who desires to be filled. Like, the idea is she feels empty. And John Steinbeck set this up with this unfilled moment, right? And it says, at the sides of the feeding racks were visible between the slats, the heads of the horses could be seen. So all of this is playing into the imagery. We smell the hay. We can see it sloping down. We hear the horses kind of nibbling. Maybe they're stomping their feet a little bit. The chains from their harnesses are rattling. So it's very calm. It's very peaceful. Okay. And notice here, how does such imagery contribute to the characters and their personality? Let's think of Curly's wife. She is a very peaceful character. She is made to be quiet by all of the men on the farm. So let's look here. Let's look at the second part. It was Sunday afternoon. Sunday meaning a time of rest, so that the workers are not out on the farm. They're more or less like playing horseshoes. They are lounging in the bunkhouse. They are resting. Sunday is a day for rest. So no work is happening on the farm. The resting horses nibbled on the remaining whips of hay, and they stamped their feet, and they bit the wood of the mangers and rattled their halter chains. The afternoon sun sliced in through the cracks of the barn walls and lay in bright lines on the hay. There was a buzzing of flies in the air, the lazy afternoon humming. So it's very quiet. It's very still. Okay. It's very, I want to use the word intimate. It's a very closed off scene, and we only get to see so much. So in the barn in the afternoon, you get, let me use a different color here. You get the barn from the slats in the barn. You get these lines of sunshine that go straight through. So they're here and then they get through. You only get, so it's kind of dim. It's kind of like you would go into the barn and your eyes would need to readjust so that you could see in the dim lighting. It's not super bright like it would be outside in the afternoon. It's dim. It's quiet. There's a humming. There's a slow buzz. The thing is when we know about Curly's wife, she actually opens up in this chapter. Up until now, people have thought that she was like a whore. They thought that she was a slut, that she wanted to sleep with all these men. In reality, that's not true. She was just looking for attention. She was looking for someone to talk to. And unfortunately, Curly is not there to listen, and he's not a very good husband. And so she just desires attention. Imagine going to school and every single person that you walked up to denied conversation with you, ignored you, like shunned you, pushed you away, and nobody on campus would talk to you. So the minute you find someone who's willing to listen, you sit down and you kind of begin to open up and share just a little bit. So in chapter 5, we know that Curly's wife had a previous love romantic relationship, with a guy from Hollywood. She was going to be in the pitches, right? That's what she says. And they began to write love letters back and forth. There's the part where she believes that her mother had been withholding the letters. There's lots of speculation because we don't know if the guy was just trying to, be seductive and be like, oh, hey, I can get you in the pictures and let me love on you for the evening. Or was the mother really that adamant about, oh, no, you're not going to go off and marry this guy in Hollywood. You're not going to go off and be with this other guy. You should marry Curly. And so she ends up marrying Curly almost as like a second choice. Like it's not her first choice to marry Curly. Now, during this time, ladies, primarily in the early 1900s, you would stay with your parents and live with your parents until you were able to get married. It was difficult for you to own land on your own. It was difficult for you to be in business for yourself. It was difficult for you to create a life without either your parents or your husband. And so from chapter 5, it almost sounds like Curly's wife just needed some freedom from her parents because her mother was not very nice. And so she she settled for Curly. Ladies, please don't settle for a man that you are not interested in. And that's why there's tension in their relationship. We were exposed to this ever so slightly. John Steinbeck creates and sets up this scene because we only know so much. It's almost like, if you look over here, it's almost like the little slivers of light that come in on the barn floor is the bit of information that we know about Curly's wife up until now. She's married to Curly. She can't talk to anyone. We don't know a lot about her. We don't know a lot about her at all. And so he sets up the scene to be like very intimate and quiet and calm because she's about to expose herself and open up. Finally, someone's going to listen to her, recognize her, right? And unfortunately, it turns south because of Lenny and his misunderstanding of what's happening in chapter 5. So, number one, why does John Steinbeck set up this scene for Curly's wife in conversation with such description? Because it's intimate. Because this is an important scene for her. And the thing is when you share something that's really personal with you, you don't shout it out loud for the world to hear. You maybe tell a person very quietly in a one-on-one conversation. And then you get to own, and then you share, and then you share, and then you share. It's not necessarily we publicize personal things right away. So he sets this up for us to have like this calm entrance, for us to be welcoming to Curly's wife, for us to be, look at that. We don't even know her name. We don't even know Curly's wife's name. That's how little we know about her, and how much John Steinbeck is setting us up to be like, let me tell you more about this lady. Let me tell you more about this character. Okay. What words or phrases help shape the conversation? So you see things like afternoon humming, excuse me. Let's see. Sunday afternoon would be one. The sun sliced through the racks of the barn walls, bright lines on the hay. That would kind of shape the conversation for it to be small slivets of information. Even though we find out about Curly's wife's past, we don't know all of it. We don't know the circumstances about how she met Curly or marriage or the first whatever. Like, we don't know those things. The hay came down like a mountain slope. One great barn. Like, they set up this great, huge, look at this barn, look at this new hay, look at this place. Unfilled is probably a word that you could use because for question number 2, because unfilled identifies, he doesn't say empty. He doesn't say vacant. He says unfilled, meaning something has to be filled. And for Curly's wife, it's the desire to be heard, to be known, to be filled with the affirmation. Like, if you are lonely, that's one of our major themes that we've been talking about for Of Mice and Men. When you are lonely, you want something to be filled. You want attention. You want affirmation. You want a relationship. Okay. Even after a day of being by myself, there's a moment where I'm like, I need some human interaction. I need to talk with someone. I need to interact. I need to engage in some sort of human connection. And so it is unfilled for her. Okay. So, I mean, this is a great chapter when she begins to open up and she realizes that Lenny is just really soft, really kind, a very just childlike. It is so sincere. It is so sweet. We understand that Curly's wife is not as promiscuous as we think, or as devilish or as seductive. We just really understand that she's lonely, that she wants attention, that she wants to get to a place where she can just have someone to listen to, right? So looking at that, and unfortunately, she's like, oh yeah, my hair is so soft, I brush it. And this is where things go south, because Lenny, who likes soft things, right? The puppies and the rabbits, right? And velvet. He has touched all those soft things. And this is what happened in their previous town to George and Lenny. Lenny got super excited when he was reaching out to touch something soft of a woman's dress because he likes how it feels, and she freaked out and started screaming. And so what happens here is Curly's wife says, oh yeah, look at my hair, it's so soft, it's so soft. And he goes over and he starts to touch her hair and understand it's soft. And of course, as he continues, suddenly Curly's wife is like, don't mess up my hair, don't mess. And she freaks out and begins to start yelling that he freaks out and begins to muffle her. She struggles, he grasps on, and unfortunately, spoiler alert, he breaks her neck in that moment because he's so big and strong. And the part that breaks my heart about this, no pun intended with the word break, because he broke her neck. The part that breaks my heart is this is the first opportunity that she's had to share who she is as a person, that she has dreams and desires, that she had hopes, right? The whole book, George and Lenny have been talking about owning their own land, and Crooks and Candy and all these people are like, oh my gosh, I want to join in with you on this dreams, right? And then Curly's wife comes up and she's just like, I have a dream too. I would love to be an actress. I would love to get out of this, podunk town. I want to be somebody. And as soon as she does, unfortunately, there's the misunderstanding, and Lenny tries to keep her quiet so he won't get into trouble, and pulls and snaps her neck. And she falls down and she's lifeless, dead instantaneously. So chapter 5 there's a lot. Some people have identified that chapter 5 is the climax, like the breaking of the neck, because after that it all downfalls into chapter 6, which we will talk about as well. But we'll unpack that a little bit more. Take some time to make sure that you've got good, complete answers, that you've got good, complete sentences for these questions. And then this is what you'll be turning in. If I can find a video clip of this particular scene, I'll add that in as well, so you guys can review that. But chapter 5, if you were to break this apart for Curly's wife and do a characterization chart, it is pretty evident how she's lonely, how she desires attention, how she is unfilled, and how the small conversation with Lenny actually kind of fills that in that moment, momentarily. Okay. Once again, take a moment to make sure that your answers are in complete sentences. Before you submit this, you can watch the films and then add your insight as well. Okay. Thanks, guys.